Good afternoon or selamat siang. Welcome and thank you for joining today's webinar, Shaping Your Future, Unlock the Power of Coding and Artificial Intelligence. My name is Hari Revantara, Student Recruitment Manager at Deakin University, Lancaster University, Indonesia, and I'll be your host for today. In this session, we will take you through the DLI overview, entry requirements, scholarships, application requirements, how to apply to our campus, Deakin University, Lancaster University, Indonesia. Before we start, a few housekeeping items. The webinar is being recorded. We also have a Q&A session at the end, so feel free to submit your question through Q&A box, and we go through the as we go through the webinar. By the end of this webinar, you will have more information about our campus and ready to start your education journey with us. Today, I'm pleased to welcome Mr. David Matthews. David Matthews is our Chief Operating Officer who has worked in international education for 3 decades across Australia, Malaysia, Canada, US, Sri Lanka, and also UK. Welcome, David. And next,
go on, Harry, sorry.
and next, I also welcome Professor James Stovold. Professor James is an assistant professor in computer science at Lancaster University, Leipzig, Germany. He completed his Master of Engineering and PhD in Computer Science with the York Center for Complex System Analysis at the University of York. After returning to academia from industry in 2017, he has worked in a number of British institutions before joining Lancaster University in 2022. His research interests center around unconventional computing and emergent behavior. In particular, he has interest in computing with biological and chemical matter and using modern computer science techniques to help understand biological and cognitive processes. Thank you for joining us, Professor James. So today, David will take you through everything you need to know regarding DLI overview, entry requirements, and the scholarships we have available for our inaugural cohorts. Over to you, David.
You're on mute, Dave.
Here we go. You think after 5 years I'd know that. Selamat siang, and great to be with you all today. The great pleasure of me to talk to you about our beautiful university campus in Bandung in Indonesia. And I'll just go through some information before handing over to Dr. Stovold to talk to you about his IT. So as you can see, our campus in Indonesia is all about bringing international education within reach, and our focus is on bringing the best of Australia and the best of the UK together to offer to students right here in Indonesia, for Indonesian students, but also for international students studying in Indonesia as well. Next slide, thanks, Ferry. Okay, I'm sure many of you know Bandung, which is where our campus is located. It's a beautiful, vibrant higher education city. We know there's lots of students there, lots of student accommodation, student life. We know there's lots of places for students to enjoy, but it's also a great place to study as well. Getting around Bandung is very easy. It's lots of history, lots of things to see and do. And we also know that it has the new whoosh, which I was very excited to sit on recently. Well, I've done it many times now, but doing 350 kilometers an hour was very exciting and a very quick way to get from Jakarta to Bandung and back as well. Thank you, Barry. As you know, Bandung is the garden city. I've spent the last 3 to 4 months in Bandung. I must say it's a very beautiful place. It's definitely a great destination for travelers, for tourists. It's also ranked very highly in the world as a trending destination, very attractive place. So we know it's a great place for tourists to come, and also that makes a great place to live and to study as well. Thank you, Ferry. Okay, a bit about what we're offering in Bandung. This is unique. This is bringing a fantastic degree or university from Australia and one from the UK together to offer students here something which is, I think, a fantastic benefit and very different, but also exciting prospect as well. So that we have innovative dual degrees in both business courses, but also in information technology courses. But besides coming out with 2 degrees, the courses are also recognised by the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology of the Republic of Indonesia, which means that it's also recognised in Indonesia. So at the end, you come out with recognition across 3 different countries, allowing you to work and do different things in different countries as well. Some of the benefits are you gain 2 degrees from 2 universities who are both ranked in the top 200 globally. So very highly ranked universities. It also gives you the opportunities to spend a semester in Australia and a semester in UK if you wish to do so. And one of the benefits we're offering for our first cohort of students is 50% scholarships for your entire degree. That's not just year 1, but years 2 and 3 as well. The curriculum, which is really exciting, is developed by both universities. So you get the best of both worlds from the UK and from Australia. And it's delivered entirely in English. So it's the same as if you're studying in Australia, the UK. Everything's in English and you come out with those same degrees as well. And of course, it's right here in Bandung in Indonesia as well. Thanks, Ferry. So we are starting in September with 5 degrees. The first 2 are in IT, so a Bachelor of Computer Science and a Bachelor of Honours in Computer Science. You can see there that there's 2 degrees mentioned in each one. The first degree you'll see is the degree you get from Deakin University in Australia, and the second degree is the one you get from Lancaster University in the UK. So you come out with 2 testamers, 2 degrees, which is a fantastic start to your career. So we have them in computer science and cybersecurity, and then in the commerce business area, you have business analytics, we have business management, and also we have accounting and finance as well. So great opportunities there. And when you study those degrees, the 2 IT degrees, first year is common. So after first year, if you want to change, you can. And in the 3 business degrees, the first year is also common for those. So after first year, you can also change if you want to change your mind between accounting and finance and business analytics, for example. Thanks, Ferry. Okay, this is the design of the degree. So at the top, you see the foundation year. So we do have a foundation if you don't quite make the entry requirements into first year. And once you get into first year, you can see that half of the modules are from Lancaster University and half the modules are from Deakin University. If you're from Indonesia, there are also some national subjects which are a requirement to allow you to be recognised by the Indonesian government as well. Plus, there's a few extra units from both Deakin and Lancaster to do across 3 different semesters during the year. And this come out with 2 degrees from 2 different universities. Very. Okay, next one, Ferry. Thank you. Okay, what's different about an international university? So we don't just focus on what is happening with the subject matter in the classroom. We're also looking at a wide range of learning outcomes, which help you develop as a student, but also get you work ready at the end. So you have all these skills which are important for your later academic life or for your working career as well. So as part of the course is also you're learning about improving communication, a big focus on critical thinking. So we don't want you to just sit in the class and listen and take notes. We want you to really dive in there and understand and ask questions and challenge as well. So there's a big focus on digital literacy, doesn't matter which degree you're doing. And even things like global problem solving, teamwork. So when you go into a class, you notice it's not just you sitting by yourself. You do a lot of group work. You're working with your fellow students on problems. It's all about really hands-on skills that you're doing in the classroom with your lecturer and with your fellow students to be successful and to really learn those good skills so you can apply what you're learning in your assignments, in your examinations, but also once you start working as well. Thank you, Ferry. So the 3 degrees you talked about in the business area, they give you a foundation in business in those different areas of business analytics or accounting and finance, for example, and it leads into lots of different professions afterwards. So in accounting, in marketing, entrepreneurship, whichever direction you want to go, we know that from these 3 degrees, there are lots of different professional roles out there for your future career. And if we move to the IT, I'm sure James is a lot more expert in the IT area. Ferry, next one. Okay. As you can see, there are also lots of different areas for after studying your IT degrees. As we know, are growing areas, not just in Indonesia, but internationally as well. So we know that there are great career opportunities after studying these 2 degrees. Thanks, Ferry. Okay, I just want to talk a bit about the campus. If you haven't been to the campus, I would like to invite you to the campus. We have spent a lot of time designing it. And the way we designed it is we looked at what we're doing in Melbourne at Deakin University and what we do at Lancaster University and how can we bring that international environment to Bandung. It's really focused on having collaborative classrooms where you work with the lecturer and your fellow students, but also around the campus, it's a very beautiful environment to help you study, enjoy, spend time there, but to really have a great place to learn and meet other students as well. So next one, Ferry. Okay, so Student Connect is the area where you go to and ask the student services team for any questions you have, whether it's about your studies, whether it's about living in Bandung, whether it's about how to join clubs and societies. Any questions, you go to the Student Connect desk and they will help you. Of course, we have a modern library as well. It's a beautiful place. And from that library, we have textbooks, of course, and librarian staff, but also you have access to the Lancaster University online library, which is very extensive and allows you to access all sorts of journals, textbooks, and other online texts as well. Thanks, Ferry. If we look at the cybersecurity lab, it is state-of-the-art. The cybersecurity lab is set up. You can see here there's a blue ceiling and a red ceiling, and you'll have activities where we close the curtain between them, where you'll be attacking each other across the 2 sides. Not physically, of course, but through computer programs, trying to defend or attack in a cybersecurity domain. It's all based on giving you practice in how to do this in real life. Next, St. Ferry. If you look at the lecture halls, they're very modern. They're based around being able to have flexible classrooms. We have a big lecture room, but also small lecture rooms as well. You can see the equipment in there. So it's all projectors. We can also bring in lecturers from our Lancaster and Deakin campuses around the world to also give expertise advice here as well, or lessons. But it's definitely fantastic facilities. Thanks, Ferry. Okay, and we also have smaller tutorials rooms where you'll go in there with your classes to do projects. You can see in this classroom, for example, there's actually 6 TVs around the room where you can sit down with a group of students, work on a project, display it on the screen, discuss it, and then share it with the rest of the class as well. So the facilities are really there to help you achieve the most of your time in the tutorials. Thanks, Ferry. This is a bit of an overview of our campus. The campus is there in grey, but around us we also have land where we have outside areas, and we have a football field where you can play futsal. On the campus there is also a mosque, there is ATMs, there is a clinic and pharmacy. There's also a food court as well where I've been enjoying some beautiful Indonesian food. So at a very cheap price as well. So all of those facilities are just based around our campus building. Thanks, Ferry. Okay, key dates. So our classes for this semester start on the 22nd of September. We have a welcome week before that, which is all about orientation. And then as you can see, during the semesters, we have mid-semester breaks, we have Christmas breaks, we have revision weeks, exam blocks, and then we have end of trimester. So these dates mirror what happens in our campuses in the UK and Australia, to make sure that you make the most of your study time, but also have time for revision, for exams, etc. We run 3 trimesters a year. As you can see, we have 2 main trimesters, and the 3rd trimester, you have a shorter study depending on what you're doing. But that's a basic timetable. But we're looking forward to welcome you to commence classes on the 22nd of September this year. Thanks, Ferry. Okay, tuition fees. So here are our tuition. And I guess the main focus here are on our scholarships. We have an exclusive Perdana scholarship for our first year, where we're giving a 50% discount or 50% scholarship to every student. And that's not just for first year, that's for year 1, year 2, and year 3. As long as you keep passing all of your units, then that scholarship will be for those that full 3 years. We also have an early bird. You get an extra 12% off if you book before the 31st of May. We also have another scholarship called the Rector's Gold Transform Scholarship, and these are for students who come out with high results from school, and they can apply for a 60% scholarship or a 60% plus 12% scholarship if they do it before the end of May. So we've really focused on how do we make this this incredible international university available to as many students as we can in Indonesia, which is why we have these very attractive scholarships to welcome you to our first year of the university in Bandung, Indonesia. Thanks, Ferry. And this is the same for our IT courses. You can see we have the same scholarships, the same Rector's Gold Transform Scholarship, the same Early Bird scholarships for our 2 IT programs, as well as our business programs as well. Thanks, Ferry. Okay. We also have our scholarships, the same scholarships for foundation. So if you are doing a foundation course, you will get the 50% scholarship for the foundation, which will also continue through to 1st, 2nd, and 3rd year of your degree. Now, remember, these Perdana scholarships are only available for 2025 start. So if you want to take advantage of this, September 2025 is the time to enroll and commence your studies with Deakin University, Lancaster University, Indonesia. Thanks, Ferry. Okay, and this is the application process. So if you have your phone now, you can actually scan the QR code on the screen, and that will start taking you through the process. So you can either go through one of our many education agents around Indonesia, who will help you by registering to the university, or you can come direct to us. So it's by scanning the QR code, you do an student application, you register the account, and then once you're into the application portal, you can choose the degree and put in all the information, upload the data, and then the admissions team in Indonesia will contact you and send you a conditional offer letter to start the whole process. So even if you're not sure, I would get on there now, send in a student application, and then the team can start helping you with the process needed for joining Deakin University, Lancaster University, Indonesia in September 2025. And just before we leave that screen, just go back again. Sorry, Ferry. Yeah, if you haven't scanned that QR code, do it now. If not, then please go to dli.ac.id and click apply now, and that will also take you there as well. It's a very important process for you to do. Thanks, Ferry. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us today. If you have any questions at all, then please email us at inquiry@dli.ac.id or telephone us on the number below. Or once again, scan the QR code, and that QR code will send you to ask questions to the team at DLI Indonesia. So thank you very much. I'll now like to pass back to Ari. He will introduce us to our star speaker, Dr. James Stovold. Thank you, Ari.
Thank you, David, for sharing valuable information about DLI, the DLI overview, entry requirements, and the scholarships. It is a great opportunity for Indonesian students to experience the high-quality campus, and education offering from 2 universities ranked in top 200 globally. We were bringing world-leading international education within reach, providing our graduates with global options for further studies and their career. So, Bapak, Ibu, and students, we are proud that our campus is ready, and we look forward to welcoming our inaugural students this year. And next is Professor James, who will take you through about the power of coding and artificial intelligence. Over to you, Professor James.
Can you guys see that okay?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay. So hello, everyone. So as mentioned, my name is James Stovold. I'm an assistant professor at Lancaster University. I'm based at our Leipzig campus, which is in Germany. I was lucky enough to be able to visit Indonesia recently and meet all the team and see the campus. And I can tell you now, it's the facilities which are available there are generally better than most of what I studied in when I was a student. So it's a good opportunity if you can make your way there. Go and have a look at the campus. It's a really nice place to wander around, and the team are all really helpful to help you see and understand what's available. I was wondering what to kind of talk about in this slot when asked to sort of speak with you guys, and I was sat thinking about all of the different students I've seen over the years. I've been teaching now for maybe 12, 13 years in my career. And I've seen thousands of students come through, thousands of students in your position, trying to decide what to do with their lives, basically, what direction to go in. And I realized that there were certain patterns which I would see from students where there are certain misconceptions, certain misunderstandings, which reappear every year, every time I speak to students. And it's not every student, and it's not every set of parents who have this misunderstandings, but it seems to be pervasive. They seem to always be there. The first one is that computer science is a difficult subject, which I'm biased, of course, because I'm generally quite good at computer science, but I think that computer science is not particularly difficult. It's just, you need to be explained in the right way. And so what I'm going to do today is give you a brief introduction to computer science and AI from the perspective of this is as simple as it is. It's not a complicated subject. It's just about understanding it in the right way and approaching it in the right direction. The second misconception, which I see again and again, is that computer science and IT and everything like that is only for boys, which is completely false. I know plenty of female computer scientists who are substantially more intelligent than I am, and generally much better computer scientists than I am, and run rings around all of the boys. So if that's in any way stopping you, if you are a girl who is considering this, believe me, this is definitely for boys and for girls. And the third one is the one which is a little harder to get your head around. And that's this idea that computer science is about computers. And there's a very famous quote that's attributed to Edgar Dijkstra, which is that computer science is no more about computers than astronomy is about telescopes. Okay, so astronomy, this study of the stars and of planets, is not in any way about the telescope you're using to see those stars and those planets. You're just using it as a tool. You're trying to understand something, and you're using a tool in order to bring that closer and to make it easier to understand. Computer science is the same. We are using these computers because they allow us to study certain things. And this is kind of the weird nature of computer science, where we have sort of one foot sat firmly in science and scientific study, the pursuit of knowledge, where we're trying to understand what is computation, what is the nature of information processing, what is the nature of computing, and how can we understand that better. And on the other hand, the other foot is in engineering, where what we're trying to do is solve problems and to solve those problems at scale. So yes, we can solve a problem which works for 10 people at a time, but can it work for 2 million people? That then is an engineering problem, but based on the scientific study of how problems scale and how computation and information processing changes over as you increase the input size. And this is something which we call complexity analysis. But these are not about computers. These problems are general everyday problems. We just happen to be thinking about them through the lens of how do we get a computer to do something. And the reason why I tend to keep coming back to this point is that the skills which students pick up in these degrees, in computer science degrees, generally speaking, aren't just focused on computers. Therefore, they can be applied across a huge array of different jobs and different careers. And this is the point which I'll come back to towards the end. But what I wanted to do first was give you my view of how computers work. Okay, what is a computer and what does it do and why is it interesting? And to do that, I'm just going to draw a box. It's a triangular box. It looks a bit like this. And what we have, this is my view of what your computer is doing all the time. Okay, so we have some inputs on the left here, and these could be some numbers, these could be some letters, some strings, some anything you like, an image. And then we have some set of rules about what to do with that input. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to take our input and we're going to take our rules and we're going to apply the rules to the input, and we're going to get some output. Just going to come squirting out this side of the box. That is, in my head, computation. That is doing something. We are taking some input and transforming it into some output. And this is based on the original computers, which were people. Originally, especially during the war, there were whole banks of people sat in rooms, typically women, who took a series of numbers as input, applied certain processes, which in those days were mathematical formula, and produced outputs, which are the results of those calculations, and then passed them back. And all modern computers is basically a very quick way of doing that using electricity. Now, what gets interesting with these is we can start chaining these together. Okay, so we can take the output of this particular box and we can pass it as an input into another box. And we can do that again and again and again and again and again. And we can apply different rules for the different boxes. So while this one here maybe adds 1 to every number on the input, this one here might multiply it by 2. And that gives us the flexibility, provided we have the right boxes and the right rules, to basically do any transformation of information that we need to do. But the trick, and the bit which gets really interesting for me in computer science, is what if we didn't squirt the output of this first one into the input of this second one? What if we squirt it into the rules? What if our first input comes up with some rules which we can pass to another input, and that other input then can be applied? Yeah? So this is the trick which makes modern computers so flexible. Okay, they're able to change their own code, their own rules. We program the computer on the computer itself. It's a process called bootstrapping, where you pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. It's probably a term you probably don't know that much. It's quite an old term, but that's why we call it that. And so this is what allows us to write computer code, which we can then compile down into something which the computer itself can then run. And it's also what allows us to make manipulations within memory to change things as things are running. This is where the flexibility of computers comes from. This, for me, is where it starts to get interesting, because just applying rules to an input, well, that's just maths. That's fairly dull. That's easy enough to do. Anyone can do that. But when you start getting something where we start changing the rules of the game based on what's happened previously, that's much more interesting to me. But then the fundamental question comes out of, well, what do those rules look like? Because if we've got these rules as an output of one of these systems, we need to understand, how do we change them? How do we manipulate them? So let's make this a bit more concrete. We'll go back to our one box system and let's give it some inputs. So we're going to give it some numbers. This is a list of numbers which I randomly pulled out of the air last night. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to give it a fairly basic rule. This is my rule, add 1. Now, in your head, you can probably look at that list of numbers there, and you've probably got an idea of what you think is going to come out of this box. And you might be right, you might be wrong. It's kind of hard to tell, because it could be this. We could have taken that list and added 1 to the end of the list. That is one interpretation of this rule. We could have added 1 to the beginning of this list. That would also be a valid interpretation of this rule. Chances are you were probably thinking of this, where you add 1 to each number in that list. But the point here is that using this as a rule of just add 1, this is ambiguous. It's too unclear. It's not precise enough. So this is the problem with natural language. The English language, Indonesian language, all these different languages are too ambiguous. It is not clear precisely what we want the computer to do. Therefore, we can't use this as a rule. What we need is something much more precise. And this is where computers code comes in. Okay, the programming language allows us to be very precise about what the computer should do and how it should do it. For example, instead of saying add 1, if we wanted this, this middle output here, where we just put 1 on the end of the list, well, we could have something which looks a bit like this. So append here just means put something on the end of something else. So we might have some numbers, which is our list, and we might put 1 on the end of it. That means that in gray here, we have our original list, and we're going to slap 1 on the right-hand side there to make the list 1 longer. Similarly, we could put 1 at the beginning by using prepend. What that means. These are much more precise. The issue being, we now need to work out what this does. We need to tell the computer what this particular command means. So then we need to be able to define these functions, which are other boxes in themselves. So this is the nature of coding. This is what coding is all about. This is what programming languages were designed to do, is that what they gave us was this clear, concise method of specifying exactly what you want the computer to do. What do you want this machine to do? And how do you want it to do it? For example, this horrible mess of code here, which you're not expected to understand, so don't worry, does that final option. Rather than appending or prepending to a list, it adds 1 to every item in that list. We can see that we have our list of numbers at the top here, and what we have down here is a little loop which basically goes to each one in turn and adds 1 to it. That's all it's doing. So this is then the level of precision which we need in a computer system in order for the computer to work. Otherwise, it's too ambiguous, it's too confusing for the computer. It doesn't know what output you actually want from your computation. Now, when we get to the level that this is this precise, there's no room for error. There's no variation. There's no interpretation going on. It just does what you tell it to do, which means that if we give the same input and the same rules, we should get the same output every single time. Okay, it's something called determinism. These two inputs, if we keep the same input and the same rules, the only thing we can get is the same output. But as I'm sure you're all aware, I'm sure you've all seen a page which looks a bit like this before. This is ChatGPT. If we go here and we give it the same input and we do it twice, well, we don't always get the same output. So there's clearly something different going on here. In general, when we are working with computers, they are deterministic. They do give us the same output. So something different is happening in this system than what we expect from a computer. So how come we see these different outputs? What's going on here? Well, let's go back to our box. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to label this box. This is our computer science view of the world. Okay, and let's move it out of the way. And I'm going to have a new box down here, which I'm going to label the AI view of the world. Now in AI, we approach things slightly differently. We still have some inputs. We still have some data which we're going to pass into our box. But instead of passing it the rules of what to do with that input, we pass it some outputs. We say, these are the inputs, these are the outputs which we want to map these inputs to. And we ask the system to come up with the rules which do that. Okay, so it's kind of reversing how computer science thinks about things. So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, here is a list of numbers. We want you to turn this list of numbers into this list of numbers. Work out how to do that. And there are many, many different ways it can do that. And it will come up with some rules and you can test them to make sure they work. Now, if these rules which we came up with were as precise as the rules we put in to the computer science system at the top here, we run into a problem. And this is a problem which computer science and AI has struggled with for the first 40 odd years that it was being studied, which is they are too rigid and too precise. These rules which we produce in an AI system, if we go the route of computer code similar to what we did for the input of a rule, well, it's deterministic again, and it doesn't generalize well. If we give it a new input, which it hasn't seen before, sometimes it goes wrong, and sometimes it breaks completely because it's never thought about it before. And it often just doesn't know what to do in that scenario, which isn't very helpful for us. We want to be able to give it different inputs, which it hasn't seen before, and have it apply these rules still effectively. The way we get around that, and one of the big kind of pushes of modern AI systems, is instead of having these strict rules which are based in code, we use statistics. So we take a statistical approach. We ask the question of what is the most likely relationship between the input and the output. From the ChatGPT perspective, what is the most likely word to come after this sequence of words? In doing that, we then have some way of saying, okay, is this likely to be the set of rules we want to use? Given some new input, we can then produce a new output, okay? And this comes back to one of the points I raised at the start of computer science and AI being complicated. What I'm going to show you in a second, in the next slide, is I'm going to sum up all of AI in modern AI in one slide. Okay, it's really as simple as I'm about to show you. Let's say this is some data about the world. Okay, let's say you go out into the streets and you find a whole load of pets. You weigh the pets and you measure their height, and you've got some cats in there, you've got some dogs in there, maybe there's a stray hamster, who knows? And you put them on this graph. AI wants to do one thing. If we want to come up with the rules, we want to understand the relationship here between these variables, between weight and height. So all of modern AI can be reduced to a single question. How do we draw a line through this data? That's it. That's all of modern AI. All of neural networks, all of the fancy support vector machines, all of these ridiculous models which we come up with, all are asking this exact same question. We just want to draw a line through some data. Now, that line often isn't straight, it's often bendy, it does strange things, but the fundamental question is still the same. And the reason we want to draw a line through data is it allows us to then ask questions. We can say, okay, everything on this side of the line, the red dots, these are all cats. Everything on the other side, the black ones, maybe they're all dogs. Maybe we can go out and we find another animal, which is this high. And we want to ask, how heavy do we expect this new animal to be? Well, we can just go to where the line is and say, we expect, remember, this is an expectation, this is a statistical approach, we expect it to weigh roughly that much. Or if we get given a new pet and we're not sure if it's a cat or a dog, let's say we weigh it and we measure it and we drop it in there and it falls on this side of the line, we can say that is most likely a dog. Okay, that is AI. That is all AI is doing. strip away all of the fancy stuff over the top, which is all basically just doing things very quickly. This is the core of how AI operates. We're just drawing a line, nothing else. There's nothing fancy going on. There's no magic. There's no actual intelligence going on here. We're just looking at statistics and how the data tells us things about underlying relationships around the world and around nature. So this is kind of my favorite example for something in the world which is conceived as quite a difficult topic. AI is not difficult. It just uses lots of computing power to do lots of fancy things. And computer science does this a lot. There's a lot of ideas that just because we don't understand something, it must be magic. If you strip it away and you learn it from the ground up, it's all really very basic. It's just about putting the right pieces together in the right order to understand it, giving you the tools, which is basically my job, give the tools for you to solve problems in a particular way. How do you understand this? How do you get your head around how to solve the problem? And so one of the questions which comes up a lot is, I talk to parents a lot in events like this, where they always ask me, should little Timmy, should he learn computer science or not? And as we've already seen in the previous presentation, there are a whole load of jobs which you can get with a computer science degree. These are all computer science focused jobs. And every time I see this list, I think back to when I was your age, when I was 17, 16, which is a long time ago now. We're talking probably 20 years ago now. Well, I was sat there, I was talking to my maths teacher at the time about what should I study. I was quite good at maths. Should I do a maths degree? I was quite good with computers. Should I do that? Should I do physics? Should I do, what direction should I go in? And he said something to me which stuck with me the rest of my life, which is, bear in mind, this was 20 years ago. So before the iPhone came out, before smartphones, before all of this modern technology, he said to me that basically in 15, 20 years time, i.e. now, everything is going to be on a computer. Computers are going to be in every field on the planet. You are not going to be able to avoid them. If you study computers, you can go anywhere and do anything. So I like to get rid of all of these up here. Yes, these are very interesting subjects, don't get me wrong. There's some really interesting jobs in there. And I like to put up a completely different list, which are still going to be using computer science technology. They're still going to need to understand how computers operate and how to use them. And there are very few jobs in the world which are not going to be impacted by computer science in the next 10 to 15 years. To the point that when I worked in industry, so I left academia for a year or two after my PhD, before I came back, and I worked in the insurance industry, which is not particularly exciting, but there we go, it was a job. And I worked with quite a few of the senior executives in that company. It's a FTSE 100 company. And the best COOs and CEOs, so these are the chief operating officers and the chief executive officers, the people who basically get things done and run the company. The best ones I ever worked with all came from a computer science or an engineering background. Every single time. There is a particular way of thinking that these subjects teach you that means you can solve any problem. And that's really what we're teaching you. In any degree, what we're training you to do is, yes, we're giving you some skills, we're training you to think in a certain way. In computer science, what we're trying to teach you to do and train you to think about is, given any problem, how do you break that problem down and solve it? So you get something which looks unmanageable, completely crazy complex, break it down into small subjects, small different problems, different chunks, solve each chunk, and then work out how to put those solutions back together again, and you can solve that big problem. That is what computer science is about. At the end of the day, it's not about the computers. It's not about anything fancy. It's just about solving problems and just doing it in a way which allows you to do it at scale. So before I wrap up, I looked last night, just out of interest really, at what basically, there's a whole load of online educational sort of what we call CPD, continuing professional development, where you, as a career, sort of mid-career individual, we're regularly doing more training, we're regularly sort of upskilling ourselves to learn new things. And so I decided to go to one of these websites, Coursera, where they have lots of these courses. And they had a blog post, which is what are the top high income skills of the next 5 years? And it's an interesting list. These are the 8 top high income skills which Coursera lists. And I was looking through these and I kind of did a little tick next to each one, which a computer science degree covers, which is basically the top 6. Which means Coursera is apparently advertising computer science degrees, because that seems to be what they're telling everyone to go and study. These are all the subjects which we teach. We have modules on pretty much every single one of these throughout the degree. So even if what you want to do is not computer science related, or you don't think it's computer science related, computer science is always a good choice, in my view. Not just because I'm a computer scientist, but because every job you're going to go into, you're going to need to work with computers. You're going to need to understand them. And the better you are at them, the better you can do your job. Okay? Gone are the days where we can turn up for work and just work on paper and that not need to worry about how computers work. In the modern era, we don't have that luxury, I'm afraid. So with that, I'm gonna wrap up. Happy to take questions on sort of the topics and anything related to computer science and the course and everything like that. But I'll pass back to Ari, who I'm sure has something to wrap up with.
Thank you, Professor James, for sharing how influential coding and artificial intelligence are in various aspects of life today and in the future, which can help us all in various aspects of life as well. And now it's time for the Q&A session. Please submit your questions into our Q&A box. We have one question for Professor James. So the question is, what academic background or subjects are required for students interested in studying coding and AI?
So off the top of my head, we will teach you the vast majority of what you need. So I think you need to have, I only know the British high school system, so you may need to convert this to the Indonesian, but I know that at A levels, we don't expect any particular subjects. We need, I think, a grade B at GCSE in maths. So you need to have, that's fairly low level GCSE, so that's like year 11, year 10, something like that, before you do A levels. That is then what we need, which is a very low level of algebra. We will teach everything else. As long as you are familiar with some word processing, that's basically all you need. And then we can build from that base to learn everything else you need.
Yeah, can I add in, Ari?
Yes.
I mean, with Australian and UK universities, generally we don't expect any pre-knowledge. You come into your degrees and you learn everything on the degree. However, of course, if you're doing coding, etc., you probably want to have an interest in that area because, you know, it's something that if you're interested, then you're going to do well.
Thank you, James. Thank you, David. And next question is again for Professor James. Considering the very dynamic IT world, what skills should be added after entering the workforce?
What skills should be added after entering the workforce?
Yeah.
I think a lot of that depends on which field you've opted to go into. We teach our students that they are going to be forever students. They are always going to be studying. It's a very, if you're working in computer science related subjects, you are going to be always trying to keep up with the latest technologies because it moves so quickly. I don't think there's any specific skills which applies to everyone. I think it's one of these things where, provided you have had a good background where you are able to learn things well, and that's part of what you will learn as a student, is this idea of self-learning. How do you actively learn? How do you take something new and pick it up without someone explicitly teaching you it? So, for example, when I was a student, I was only taught maybe 2 programming languages. I now know about, I don't know, 20 or 30 programming languages because I understand how programming languages work. And that means that whenever I look at a new language, I can just adapt it across. This is something which we try and instill in every student, is that way then when a new programming language comes along, they can pick it up quite easily and they can adapt those skills across. I don't think there's any one particular skill unless you're going into a particular workforce.
Yeah, so as long as you know the basics, you can always adapt. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you, Professor. Next question is for David. Is it possible to continue to master's degree at Indonesian universities after finishing with DLI?
So the answer is yes, because it's recognized by the Indonesian government.
Mhm.
It means that you come out with an Indonesian recognition of your degree, which allows you to go straight into masters in Indonesia. Of course, it depends on the masters, because some masters will say you need to have certain degrees to whatever, so you need to see that. But from a regulatory or side, yes, it is accepted, which is why we ensure that it's recognised by the Indonesian government.
Thank you, David. Oh, another question for David. Is there an opportunities to study at Deakin University or Lancaster University while at DLI?
So yes, as part of the degree, you had the option to apply to do a student exchange for a semester in Lancaster and or a semester in Deakin. From memory, it's after the first year. So once you're halfway through your degree, then I think you can apply for those semesters abroad. And as part of that, you don't pay any extra from the academic side. So you pay for the units in Indonesia at the rates we use in Indonesia, and then you don't pay any extra. All you pay for, of course, is your flights, accommodation, living expenses in the UK and or Australia.
Okay. Thank you so much. Next question from Nifari Raihan Permana. Since this webinar talks about shaping our future with coding and AI, I'm wondering what if we are not planning to be a coders, but wants to go into business instead? How can we still stay relevant in the future? And what kind of support of learning experience does DLI offer for students who wants to combine business with tech? I believe this question for both of you, Professor James and David, because it's combination from both.
Yeah,
So
so I
maybe
can take the
Professor
first
James?
part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
You
can
go,
take the
James.
first part and then pass to you, David, for the second part. So the first part here, if you want to go into business, this is kind of what I was getting towards at the end there, where I worked in the business environment, and having an understanding of the core skills in computer science, of problem solving, of how things work at scale is essential within business. You know, if you think about it, if you were to start a new company with 10 people in it, the processes which you put in place are going to work fine with 10 people. When you scale to maybe you want to be a multinational company, there's maybe 200,000 people working for your company. Those processes are not going to work at that scale. That is a pure computer science problem. While we're talking about coding and AI, we're talking about this as examples of technologies which we use. The underlying idea which we're trying to teach you is really how to solve problems in a logical way, and how to approach something which looks like it's unmanageable and how to get a handle on it. And so the computer science mindset is really what we're trying to build into you. This is kind of the core of the degree, and something which, when I worked in industry, there is a reason why so many engineers and computer scientists end up working in certain areas, including in business. It's because they're good at solving problems, and the world is full of problems which need solving. And if you solve the right problem, you can make a lot of money. It really is that simple.
Just added on to that, we also talked about the learning outcomes for all of the degrees at DLI, and digital literacy, critical thinking, etc., across all of our degrees. So even if you're doing a business degree, you obviously won't be doing coding, but you'll be learning digital literacy skills, for example, because you need those to be successful. And of course, if you're doing business analytics, that has a strong focus on statistics and using computers as well. And I think another thing to think about is we know that these days people change their careers and change their jobs quite regularly. It's pretty rare that someone starts the job when they leave university and have the same job 10 years later. And what we find is really university, you're learning a lot of skills, which you then can use in any opportunities in the future. You know, you might start off as a computer scientist, move into business, into insurance, for example. Then you might come back and you might move into trading or into accountancy as well. So really these degrees give you a grounding so that you can start your career, but you'll find that opportunities will come up and you might change. But it's important about those skills that you learn. As James said, if you've got a strong computer science background, it gives you certain skills. Of course, if you do commerce, you learn a lot of other skills as well. So for example, I studied accountancy at university. I started as an accountant. I stopped being an accountant for many, many years, but then I came back and, you know, even as in working in universities now, having a good understanding of business and accounting allows you to have more opportunities in the future. So really, yeah, don't just think about a specific degree will be your future going ahead. It starts you off and then you get opportunities growing in the future as well. I don't know if you agree with that, James, but that's, yep.
Thank you for the explanation. We still have some questions. Next question is again for you, David. If I may ask, how many students are there in a single batch? Thank you.
In a single, it starts together?
Yep.
Okay, well, this is our first intake we're starting. So it will be a smaller intake. I mean, as we have more and more students, obviously they'll be larger. But what we know is that, for example, where James is, we started Lancaster University in Freiburg in Germany. And we started small. Those students got a lot of attention, a lot of focus, been very successful. We expect we'll have a smaller cohort to start and then more students will join afterwards. But generally in the class, if you come to the campus, you'll see the tutorial rooms generally hold 25 to 30 students maximum. So you might be in a lecture, but a lot of your working will be with smaller groups, which we know will help you be successful.
Thank you. Next question. Are certificates obtained directly from Deakin and Lancaster University, even though students complete their full education at DLI, David?
Yes. So at the end, you come out with the Deakin University degree, or you come out with the Lancaster University degree. It doesn't say Indonesia on it at all. You get exactly the same qualification that someone does from Melbourne. Also, we know that Lancaster has a campus, for example, in Malaysia. They have one in Germany, for example. Those students come out with the same Lancaster degree that they get in the UK. So there's no difference. It's just that you're studying in a different location, but it's the same quality, the same degree that you walk away with. And then at the end, you become an alumni of Lancaster University, for example.
Next one, in order to attain the double degree from DLI, how many years of college should it take? Is it 3 years or 3 + 1 year? Maybe David can answer that. Still on mute, sorry.
So I didn't quite understand the question. You mean how long is the degree?
Yes, I think it means how long the degree is. It 3 years or 3 + 1?
So it's a 3-year degree. You'll see that we run 3 trimesters. So we have 2 full trimesters, and in that 3rd trimester, we run a couple of extra units, which are required to get the degrees from both university. But yes, it's designed to complete the degree in 3 years.
Thank you, David. The next question is for Professor James. What are some good ways to help people who don't really understand cybersecurity like parents who often forget their password or fall on online scams, so they can stay safe online and build better digital habits?
So one of the issues of cybersecurity is it's easy for anybody to fall for a scam. So my dad runs a software company and he fell for an online scam recently and lost a lot of money. So it's always a moving target. One of the things I think is most important is education. So getting people to understand there are people out there who are malicious. Don't trust everything you read. Having that critical thinking. I think the other thing, especially if they forget their passwords, is teach them about password managers. There are pieces of software which will manage your passwords for you, which are very secure. These are much better ways of doing it. They basically remember 1 or 2 passwords rather than 15 passwords, or get them set up with biometric security. So things like fingerprint scanner or facial recognition can really help to reduce the barriers while still keeping things secure.
Okay, thank you, Professor James. And next one, there are new types of IDEs popping up in the market that is already integrated with code generating AI, such as Cursor or Tray. What is your take on this?
So this is something which we are dealing with a lot in education at the moment, is the integration of AI into software, which then makes things easier for people. One of the things I would recommend to anybody who is learning something for the first time or trying to get better at doing something is not to use AI for that. AI is a very useful tool to make things faster. It is very good at making you more efficient at what you're already good at. What it is not good for is when you are trying to understand something or learn something, because it gives too much help. It's the equivalent of learning to ride your bike with stabilizers on it. If you always have stabilizers on it, you're not going to ride the bike properly. You're never going to be able to ride it without the stabilizers. So you need to learn to ride without them. And then maybe later on, you can use them if you, I don't know, you want to ride home without falling off. But that's probably not the best analogy in the world. But it's something which, using AI in these IDEs, they encourage bad habits. And bad habits is one of the things we try and teach out of students in their first year, is how to code in a good way, get those basic habits in there, which then means later on in their career, they can use AI to make their job more efficient. However, in the short term, it's best to focus on learning and treat it as a learning experience rather than using it to actually build something.
Yeah, so use AI as a tools to help, not to rely on.
Yeah, I agree. And that's across all subjects, because if you don't understand the subject you're doing, yeah, AI can give you something, but how do you know if that's actually what you want? You know, you need to truly understand it and then get AI to support you. But at the end of the day, you have to be responsible for the information you put out. So you have to really understand that. So I agree 100% with James.
Okay, thank you. So the last question is for David. Is there any chances for 100% scholarship?
There is one. We have one scholarship. So all the students who are eligible for the 60% Rector's Scholarship, there is one 100% scholarship. And those students who are eligible for the 60% can apply for the 100%, and then they will go through a process of interviews. And I think there's a written task as well for the panel to decide which person receives that 100%. That will be decided at basically, I think once we commence at the beginning of the semester. Yeah, we're looking forward to doing that. We'd love to give one student a 100% scholarship.
Thank you. And that is our last question. So thank you, Professor James. Thank you, David, for answering all the questions. And thank you to the audience for all your questions. And also thank you for joining us today. We hope you find the session insightful and informative. We'd like to extend our gratitude to our speakers for sharing their expertise and to each of you for your participation and engagement throughout the webinar. Remember to apply now and benefit from the range of scholarship we have available for our 2025 students. Before we conclude, here are the few key reminders. Recording of today's webinar will be available on our social media. Please follow our social media and stay connected. Don't forget to follow our Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, or visit our website at dli.ac.id for more upcoming events, updates, and resources. If you have any further questions, reach out to our team, or you can scan the QR code on the screen for more information. Once again, thank you for being part of this event. We look forward to seeing you at our future webinars. Have a great day ahead, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.